Hell Yes Life, episode 24. Welcome to the Hell Yes Life podcast, the show that helps you come alive so you can live a Hell Yes life. I'm your host, Norman Bell. Hey there, Hell Yes Lifers. Welcome to another edition of the Hell Yes Life podcast. I am your host, Norman Bell, and I'm excited to be here. This is the place to hear inspiring stories and actionable tips from our amazing guests that will motivate you to live your Hell Yes Life. The Hell Yes Life podcast releases new episodes every Tuesday. Now, Hell Yes Lifers, if you want to write a review, please visit hellyeslife.com/HYL iTunes. Also, I encourage you to join us in our Hell Yes Life Facebook community, where we're supporting each other to move toward our Hell Yes lives. I've actually connected with a couple of members of the group who will likely be future guests on the show, so if you're interested in possibly being a guest, it's a great place to connect with me. To join the community, visit hellyeslife.com/Facebook. Now, I'd like to hear directly from you, Hell Yes Lifers. Your feedback is super valuable and much appreciated. Here's a message from one listener, Amit Muki. Amit says, "Hi, Norman. Just listened to the latest episode of your podcast, Hell Yes Life, featuring John Lee Dumas. I must tell you, buddy, it was really awesome. Very insightful, especially the section where John talks about how he plans his day. I love that section too, Amit. And your style is also cool. Hell yes. So Norman, thank you for doing what you do. I look forward to listening to more such wonderful episodes, and I'm surely going to share your podcast with my friends." Well, thank you so much for the feedback, Amit. It is much appreciated. Now, Amit has joined our Facebook group. He's signed up for the mailing list. So Amit, thanks for jumping in and becoming a full-fledged Hell Yes Lifer. If you'd like to send me some feedback and possibly have your message read on the air, head over to the contact page of hellyeslife.com. That's hellyeslife.com/contact. One last special announcement. Former HYL podcast guest and TEDx speaker coach Robert Galinsky contacted me to ask if I could get the word out about a special project he's involved with. Robert, I am happy to do so. Robert is working with Dr. Jenny Stepanek on an Easy Raise crowdfunding campaign to raise money so they can publish an inspiring deck of playing cards they're calling Maddie's Deck. Now, if you don't know who Dr. Jenny Stepanek is, she is the mother of Maddie J.T. Stepanek, who was a poet and peacemaker who had a rare neuromuscular disease and died in 2004 at the age of 13. Before his death, however, he published 6 best-selling collections of poetry books and 1 collection of essays and an email correspondence between Maddie and President Jimmy Carter. Oprah Winfrey called Maddie one of her greatest spiritual teachers and calls Jenny one of the most inspiring mothers and powerful women she's ever met. Jenny suffers from the same rare disease that claimed the lives of all 4 of her children, including Maddie. Now, Robert, who works with the Literacy for Incarcerated Teens program, saw that teens in prisons he visits play cards all the time, and having been inspired by Maddie's work, he had the idea to feature quotes from Maddie's poetry on decks of cards that would be distributed to the teens that he works with. The Easy Raise project will produce 3,000 decks of cards, which will be distributed to the teens Robert works with. Now, up to this point, they've raised about $1,300 so far, so they're looking to raise about $8,000 more. So to donate, please visit hellyeslife.com/Maddie. That's MATTIE. hellyeslife.com/Maddie, MATTIE. And you will be taken to the Easy Raise project page where you can make a donation. All right, let's talk about today's guest on the Hell Yes Life podcast, Kathy Tuccaro. Kathy is from Quebec, Canada, which is where my mom's side of the family is from, so a shout out to all the Quebecers out there. Kathy is the author of the upcoming book, Dream Big: Overcoming a Lifetime of Trauma and Abuse That Led to Dreams of Success. In addition to being a motivational speaker and author, Kathy works full-time as a heavy equipment operator, and part of her job is to drive the biggest truck in the world. That's right. She drives a 400-ton Caterpillar truck up in the Alberta oil sands. Now, you've got to go to the episode page of hellyeslife.com and check out a picture of Kathy and this truck. It is amazing and totally awesome. And when I saw a picture of this, when she sent me an email, I just thought, oh man, we got to get Kathy on the show. Now, in the interview, we talk about Kathy's journey out of extremely challenging circumstances to how she ended up driving the biggest truck in the world, to how this development led her forward to writing her book and working on some amazing service projects. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Hell Yes Lifer, Kathy Tuccaro. Kathy Tuccaro, welcome to the Hell Yes Life podcast. Are you ready to tell us about your Hell Yes Life?
Hell yes, I am.
Oh, nice one, Kathy. That was a good one. Blowing out the speakers. All right. Well, I always like to start off by asking our guests, what is your Hell Yes? What is that thing that really lights you up and makes you come alive?
Well, I can tell you one thing. It's the day I went to the mine and I got my truck, and I took one look at the truck, and I look up because it's the size of a house, and I look up and I'm like, oh my God, hell yes, I'll be driving that thing. It's huge.
Right. So you had a hell yes moment when you saw this truck. So Hell Yes Lifers out there listening, you've got to see, I'm going to make sure and post this on the episode page for Kathy's episode, a picture of her with this giant truck that she drives as a part of her job. Now, Kathy, let's back up a little bit here. Tell us a little bit about this truck.
Okay, I drive the 797 Caterpillar F-Series. It is 400 tons. The tires are $80,000 a piece. They're twice the size of me. It is basically the size of a house is what it is. So if you were to see that coming down the road, you actually are seeing a 2-story building driving on wheels. It is massive.
Oh, wow.
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
and I saw it's a beautiful thing. I can hear you coming alive just talking about it there. So, and when I saw a picture of this, I have to admit there's a little kid in me that was sort of like, oh, a giant Tonka truck. Oh, I like that. So tell us a little bit about, I guess let's back up a little bit. And I know you have a book coming out, and we'll be talking about that, as well as some of the challenges you face and so forth in your past. But tell us a little bit why are you driving this truck? Where do you use this truck? Tell us all about it.
Okay, well, let's start out. I was a nurse for 13 years, and at the age of 42, I had a massive breakdown due to untreated trauma. And so I needed to take time off life. And so going through that, I needed to have a complete career change. And to do so, I had to take a career planning workshop. And I mean, how do you change careers when you're 42 years old? It's really difficult when all I know was nursing. So it turns out that this career planning workshop geared out after these aptitude tests and personality tests turned out to be a heavy equipment operator. And when the lady told me that, I just about fell off my chair. I mean, what? That's a man's job. And I'm a woman. I'm 42. Are you kidding me? But it turns out to be the best thing ever. They sent me to a place here in Edmonton called Women Building Futures. And with that, they get women into the trades, whether it be construction, electricity, plumbing, heavy equipment operator, whatever. And so there was 170 women that applied. Imperial Oil happened to come in and offer a pilot project to get women in up north and up in the northern Alberta oil sands. So out of the 170 women, 16 women were chosen, and I got picked. And out of the 16, there was 11 that got hired, and I got hired. And so this job, I went from nursing to driving the biggest piece of equipment in the world. And every piece of equipment up there, whether it's grader, bulldozers, the shovels are size of ships. It is massive, massive things. So it's been really quite the career change, let me tell you.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, so let's back up in that story a little bit. You said you took a kind of an assessment test, and what came back was you would be perfect for heavy equipment operation. So, tell us about that moment, because that could have been a moment that you could have easily brushed over as this test, I don't understand this test, but the results came back faulty there, because I've never had an interest in that, but you didn't. You followed that. So, tell me about that. First of all, why did it come back? What was it about your answers to the test that resulted in those responses?
I'm not really sure exactly how that came about, because there's so many questions, so many aptitude tests, personality tests, what you like, what you don't like. And I know for sure I'm not an office person. And, but when that test came back and I look at the lady and I said, that's not mine. That can't be right. That's impossible. I've never even looked at equipment. Honestly, there was a guy sitting next to me. I said, that's got to be his test. That can't be right. And she looks at me and her answer was, if only you would believe in yourself, you would see that the test is right. And so, so as I'm sitting there contemplating that, she puts on a Les Brown video, and the video said, it's possible. And so as Les Brown is talking, I'd never heard of him before either. And so I'm listening to him talk, and I'm starting to think, well, I am a good driver. I've never had any accidents or anything. So, well, maybe I can do it. So I was going with the idea in mind of getting my class 1 driver's license, so I can go drive down in the States and go to warmer places instead, right? But no, this worked out way better. I mean, I work 10 days, I get 10 days off, I get a month paid vacation. This is like the job lottery. Never mind driving the coolest truck in the world,
And we're gonna get more into that truck. I want to hear like behind the wheel. What's it like? But actually, I want to point out, Hell Yes Lifers. Well, a couple of things. One, so it turns out, so it sounds like there was a person that was there that helped you with this sort of a turning point moment, right? That person that said, "Hey, if you would only believe in yourself, you would see that this could be a fit for you." And then she puts on a Les Brown video. And Hell Yes Lifers, if you're not aware of who Les Brown is, please look him up on. Actually, I have some of his work on Spotify, but look him up on YouTube or anywhere else. He's one of the greatest motivational speakers around. So I'd highly recommend listening to Les Brown. And it sounds like it worked for you, Kathy.
Yes, it did. It was in that one critical moment where I actually thought, well, you know what? Maybe it is possible. Because, I mean, you got to think about this. I'm a woman, I'm 42, midlife, and you want me to go start and learn about heavy equipment operating? Are you kidding me? So, I mean, it was a big step to take. But that woman, when she said, if only you would believe in yourself, and then Les Brown saying it's possible, the two combined, I said, well, you know what? Why not? I'll try. I'll go see what they have to offer.
Right. You said hell yes to what's in front of you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes when, it's not clear what the answer is, it's like, okay, well, what's showing up today? All right, driving a gigantic truck. Let's do it. Hell yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about the truck a little bit more in a bit, but now let's backtrack a bit. I know that you've had a challenging past, and I was wondering if you could take us back to a moment in your past where you were really up against a wall. I think you had a story about kind of your turning point about when you decided to move forward, but take us back a little bit and what brought you to where you are today.
Okay. As I had said earlier, I had a lifetime, and I mean lifetime, of trauma and abuse since I was a child. Lots of sexual abuse, rapes. I mean, I was even gang raped when I was 19. I had a history of picking men that were violent, and so I've suffered an extreme amount of physical abuse. I mean, I've been strangled 3 times. There's a lot. And so for me, it was my way of coping with it wasn't. I just didn't cope with it. I didn't pretend that I pretended that everything was okay all the time when it wasn't. And as a nurse, it was very easy for me to take myself out of my own pain and deal with other people's pain. Dealing with someone that's got a massive burn injury or someone who's dying of cancer seemed a lot more worse than my own thing. But you can only do that for so long. right? So slowly over time, after not dealing with anything, and more issues happening, more things coming up, and I still put on this mask in front of everybody that everything's okay, really deep down, it wasn't. I was one giant mess. And my chapter 6 is actually called Bird with a Broken Wing, because that was the worst time of my life. I was done, right? I couldn't even pretend anymore. So my coping skills were I started drinking, and that slowly just kind of started out slowly, and it was a 10-year, I call it a drinking career, because I gave it a good shot. But I mean, I've been sober 5 years now, which is fantastic. But that career led me to losing my nursing job, led me to losing my apartment. My daughter wouldn't talk to me anymore. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that were involved just because I couldn't take care of myself. And that actually this is where my changing moment came from. That all led one step to the other, led me to being homeless for a week. And that 1 week may not sound like a lot to a lot of people, but for me, it was enough to realize, like, oh my God, I'm an educated woman. How the heck did I end up here? And so on the 7th day, I'm walking, like, my head was in a real fog, that deep, dark depression where there's no even more room for tears any longer. Well, I'm walking with this guy named Toothless Joe. He was the guy that he's a savvy guy on the street who knew where to get stuff. And I figured if I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to hang out with someone who knows, the ins and outs. So as I'm walking along with him, depressed beyond depressed, he slaps me on the back really hard and he says, "This is the life. Live it. Love it." And he was quite happy with it, this big toothless grin. And I look at him, like, he hit me so hard on the back, and it's as if it cleared up the fog in my head. And I got this, I like the smoke dissipated, right? And I had this single moment of clarity. And I look at him and I said, "What did you say?" And he's just grinning at me. And I look at him and I'm like, no. Hell no, this is not my life. I actually stomped my foot and I said it even louder. I said, "This is not my life. You might be accepting of this circumstances. No, this ain't happening." So I turned around and I went straight to the hospital, went to get the help I needed. And over the next 2 years, this is, all I did was focus on myself and, where I needed to be. And honestly, that picture on the cover of the truck was 2 years to the day of my standing beside Toothless Joe. Next thing you know, I'm standing beside this truck. So just think about that. It doesn't take a long time. And you don't know where your future is going to take you. I mean, how do you go from Toothless Joe to the biggest truck in the world?
Right.
Thinking, oh, hell yeah, I'll take this. This is awesome.
Wow. So that's a great story. And I love how you know very specifically about when things turned around for you. And it was that moment when Toothless Joe said, "Hey, this is the life, let's live it." And now the funny thing is, you could have interpreted that as like, I should just accept where I'm at. And in other situations that would be appropriate. But obviously in this one, the better choice for you was to say, "Hell no, I'm not going to live this life. I'm going to say hell yes to something else." So that's a great story, and I'm glad that you made the decision that you did at that time.
You're glad. I'm glad.
I'm sure you're. Yeah, I couldn't compare to how glad you are. So let's go into a little bit about now. So you work up at the tar sands in Alberta, Canada, and that is something. And I should say, politically, people might have different opinions about the tar sands. Based on wherever they land on the political spectrum. But from a human perspective, I want to hear a little bit more about you. You described it somewhere as being like on another planet. Can you take us there? What's it like?
It's completely on another planet. Everything is massive. I mean, the roads are massive. All the equipment, the shovel bucket that loads the trucks is the size of a 2-car garage. Like, it's a building itself, and that's just the shovel. The actual shovel is a ship. It's the size of a ship. It's massive, massive, massive. The bulldozers, they're D11 dozers. They are bigger than a fuel tanker. I had a grader, a 24M grader, which was on the road right beside an 18-wheeler flat deck truck, and the grader is bigger than the flat deck truck. Like, it's massive, and you don't realize it until you have something that's like a little pickup that'll come in to compare, and you actually look, you're like, wow. Like, sometimes when the trucks are parked beside the trailers or lunch shacks, the trailers would fit in the back of the truck. Like, it's so big. So big. But at the same time, it's so cool. I sit in the truck for 13 hours a day for 10 days straight. All I do is I go to camp, we eat, we sleep, we drive. That's it, right? We do one set, 10 days, nights, and then, we get 10 days off. And then when we go back, it's day shift. So we have a rotation. But there's a lot of stuff. Like, we don't just haul oil, the oil sands, we dump the actual sand into the crusher. But other than that, we take the top dirt and we bring it to the dump. And when the mine is done, getting all the oil out, we take that dirt back and we put it back into the hole, and then they reclaim the land and rebuild everything. So it's not just, like stripping all the oil and then leaving it there. No, there's a lot of environmental issues, of course, with that. But no, it's a really quite the process. And when you don't know about it, like coming from a nursing world, like never have driven anything so big like that, it's like, wow. Holy smokes. I mean, there's on my crew, there's 120 men, there's 15 women. So, yeah, that's an adjustment as well, you know.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. What is it like being a woman in that environment?
Well, had it been somewhere else, it would have been different. But Imperial Oil / ExxonMobil, I think they are by far the best company in the world to work for. They interview 8 people for every position to make sure that they get the right type of person in that position. They don't want, there's a, what do you call it? It's a general house rules of what they go upon on their integrity and how they build their company and who's in. So it's not anything. I thought it'd be really intimidating, especially coming from my background, but no, it's not. It's like one big family. It's awesome. Yeah.
And okay, so now take us behind the wheel. All right, so you're this might be me kind of vicariously living through your description of this, but like, so there you are in this truck. What's it like? You know, just it sounds like it's something that's really exciting and makes you come alive. So take us there.
Okay, well, first of all, before you even approach the truck, you got to look to make sure there's safety issues. And you do a complete walk around, and actually, you can actually walk underneath the truck standing up straight. Like, it's that big. It's that big, right? So you got to, do your daily inspections and make sure everything's there. And it's a 2-story flight up the front, and there's a lot of safety procedures. But when you're sitting in the cab, there's cameras because it's so wide. Now, I don't know if you could look at this up on the Caterpillar site on Giant Earth Movers, I think it's called. You can actually see a picture of a brand new 797 Caterpillar truck, and there's about 200 people. There must be about 30 people standing on the deck alone. And all around, there's people all around walking, and it's so big that you can't, until you see it, you cannot actually get a visual, right? But inside the cab, it's basically like driving a Cadillac. There's cameras, there's a computer, everything is computerized. There's 286 sensors in there. So anything you do, the truck's sensors will pick it up. There's a DSS system, which means those that drive night or any time really. There's cameras that are pointed towards your eyes. So if your eyes close a little too long, the seat will vibrate and you'll get an alarm, and then which goes straight. This whole system goes straight to Texas. And I think it's Houston it is. And then the Houston people, there's actually people that sit there and look at 700 sets of eyes from all different mines. It's not just here in Canada. It's like all over the States as well. So that's their job, is sitting there looking at eyes, whether they're opening or closed. So say my eyes close, well, the camera person will contact my dispatch. Dispatch will contact me, give me a call and say, hey, are you okay? Do you need a coffee? Like, what's going on? Right? Because they want to make sure that, because I mean, you think about the size of this truck, you don't want that hitting a berm or hitting another truck, an oncoming vehicle, if the operator's tired. Because I mean, we do drive 13-hour days, mostly 12 hours, but there's always an hour overtime. So Yeah, so it's something else, and there's a lot of blind spots. That's the thing, you can't see what's to your right because of that huge deck, and so you have a pickup. If you're not paying attention, and you have a pickup that'll come along, and if you don't see him, well, you could easily run him over and not really be aware of it. It's just it's that big. So
wow.
I highly suggest to go on the Caterpillar site and check it out. 797 F Series.
All right. All right.
Even better, go on my website, look at my book.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll have links in the show notes to maybe even the Caterpillar site, but definitely to your site as well. I was thinking, the one question I had there is like, is there someone who's watching the eyes of the people who are watching all those eyes? You need to make sure that they don't. Now, if they fall asleep, we're all in trouble, right? Yeah. No, but it's good to know that somebody is doing that. That's, to keep everyone safer. That's great. So now let's shift a little bit to how do you get from there? So that's where you're at now. You're doing that in 10-day shifts, but you have some new projects, obviously. You've written a book, Dream Big, which, again, perfect metaphor for that. You standing in front of the biggest truck in the world on the cover. How do you go from doing this job to, okay, you know what, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to become, you're moving towards being a speaker, and you have all these different projects. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to, what those different projects are, and how you decided to move towards that.
Okay, well, it started out, my husband working on opposite shifts, so on my 10 days off, I sit at home doing nothing. Well, I used to sit at home doing nothing. And for someone like me who has 8 hamsters and 1 wheel going on in their head, sitting at home isn't a healthy thing. So I decided, I started doing a lot of volunteer because I was a person who lived in women's shelters off and on, even while I was in nursing. I figured I'd start there. And then I started in recovery homes, and I started talking talking about self-esteem. And so that kind of led into, maybe I'll start speaking. So that things just kind of came my way. So I started speaking. Well, I went to remember last year, the fires that went on in Fort McMurray that ravaged the whole city? There's a big. Okay. Well, during that time, I obviously wasn't at work. So, Les Brown was coming to Edmonton, and there was a big Get Motivated seminar, and I'm thinking, super cool. So I went, and, turns out he had canceled, but that's okay because, somebody else, they were speaking about, if you want to be a public speaker, write a book. And I had always said I was going to write a book, and I was going to wait till I was 80 and, kind of whatever. But I'm like, why not? Why not? So get this. I wrote the book in the truck.
In the truck. Oh, really nice.
I hand wrote the book. It's only 140 pages. It's not a massive novel. But because when it rains, we're down. Like if the weather conditions are really bad, you're going to be parked there for 12 hours. So it happened a few times. And in that picture of the water truck that I showed you, the 52,000 liter water truck, a lot of times when you're going to fill up the tank, it takes half an hour to fill up. So I took that time and I wrote. So I hand wrote the whole book, and, I'm using it now. Like there's going to be another book and another book. I found something. I unleashed a passion there I had no idea that I even had. So, and that is leading me to now speak not only at youth conferences. I speak at schools. I'm going to Grenada on April 2nd here right away, which is, for those that don't know, it's between Barbados and Trinidad, tiny little island. I'm speaking at 3 schools, a university, a juvenile center where there's 38 kids. I'm giving a workshop to the workers of the women's shelter on violence. And then I'm also giving another workshop to the women in the center on self-esteem. And I'm bringing a bunch of supplies for them as well. So this is all kind of flowing from the book, because I'm on this author's page, and there's a lady down in Grenada who wrote a book. And so I'm going down there to help her kind of do a thing. So had I not written the book, I wouldn't even have known. Right. So.
Right. Yeah. So it's a real way to get your message out there and for people to become aware of what you're doing. That's awesome. So let's back up again though, a little bit, because, again, you said, I decided to start working in shelters and so forth, but there's a moment there that you had to make that decision, right? So you had, obviously a lot of challenges in your past, And so what was it that, because there's a lot of people that could be, who knows, maybe there's someone listening right now who could be at that moment where it's like, I want to help people that have been through what I've been through, but I'm afraid, or I'm not sure if I want to, expose that part of my life or something like that. So what was it that gave you the courage to do that? And is there anything you could say to someone in a similar situation?
Well, this all came about in 2006. I was working at the hospital in Whitehorse, Yukon, and I was, due to my circumstances, happened to be living in the women's shelter there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful log house, beautiful rooms, lots of food, lots of anything that you needed. But what they didn't supply was what I needed mentally to overcome, to understand, why I'm in this situation and how do I help myself get out, and like, how do I deal with, I didn't know about boundaries until I was 40. Like, I had no idea. I actually had to ask, what does that mean? Like, I just didn't know. So when I'm sitting there in 2006 and there was one class, and all these women from the Northern Yukon Reserves were coming to this one class, and they were telling these horror stories of what's going on. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, all right, this is bullshit. This is baloney. Right. When I get out of this mess, and I will, I'm coming back and I'm going to help these women in a way that it is, more than counseling. Say, teach them how to help themselves through self-esteem, through learning to feel better about themselves, learning to make proper choices. And so that's where that stemmed. I just made a decision, like, this is enough. Like, this is wrong. And so everywhere I've gone so far to these women's shelters, they don't offer that because they only have 21 days to stay in there. They're doing all sorts of stuff. So these women are sitting there and all they do is think about their problems, and they don't have time to actually figure out why they're there. Like, it's because really deep down, it comes from low self-esteem. It comes from not believing in themselves. And I know because I was there. I really was. And to this day, I still have to fight my way through it. But I refuse to allow all these negative lies keep me down in a place where I spent way too long. I just won't do it. So if I can help educate women to actually take a look at themselves, figure out, okay, where did this all start from? Where did something go wrong? How can we fix it? How can we change that? And give them solutions and suggestions to help themselves and quit looking to other people to uplift their own self-esteem, right? Because that happens a lot. You look to someone else for approval, for what's their opinion, when in reality, it all stems from you, what you believe about you, not what somebody else believes. That's just an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yes. It sounds like awesome work that you're doing, Kathy. I know in my life, learning about codependency has been really important, just like you were saying about setting boundaries of, hey, this is okay with me, but that's not going to work for me. And what behavior you'll tolerate and not tolerate. It sounds like awesome work that you're doing. That sounds great. Let me ask you, now let's turn a little bit towards the future. And I saw your response on this, but I'd love you to go ahead and share it with our listeners. Now, I like to ask a question of our guests about their cringeworthy vision for your Hell Yes life. And by cringeworthy, I don't mean that there's anything wrong with your vision, but just that you cringe just thinking about sharing it with other people. And now here's your chance to share it with our listeners.
I haven't really said this to really anybody. It's kind of my own little scenario in my head, because
awesome.
once I started going to, I found out I'm going to Grenada and I'm giving all these self-esteem classes. I'm going to speak at schools, at a university. Oh, right on. This is cool. Well, think about it. I work 10 days. I get 10 days off. So what better place to go for your 10 days off than to a warmer climate? So I want to start Kathy's Cruises. It sounds funny saying that. So going from island to island to island and doing what I do, bringing supplies, talking about, educating the women, going to schools, talking about sexual abuse, how, giving them information that they might not necessarily have access to. I don't think I could ever go again and just simply be a tourist laying on a beach thinking, oh, this is great, when I really know what's going on in the middle of the island, right? So this has completely transformed it. So next year, starting December, on my 10 days off, I fully plan on going to 1 week to the Bahamas, 1 week to Barbados, 1 week to Trinidad. And do my little run and go to Aruba. And at the same time, I still take Kathy time, right? A little bit of snorkeling. You know how it is.
Oh, man. Oh man, I love it. But so, and each of those places, I mean, you could, even if you were just saying, oh, I'm going to Barbados, I'm going to Trinidad just to hang out, everybody would be like, oh, that sounds awesome. But you're going there and you're specifically connecting with resources in those places so you can help people in shelters or teach people about sexual abuse and so on. Is that right?
That's exactly it. And I will have a yacht called Kathy's Cruises.
Awesome.
I will.
Kathy with a K and Cruises with a K.
That's right. That's right.
Kathy's Cruises. I'll tell you what, that sounds like a great cringeworthy vision. I love it. Love it.
You got to dream, right? Dream big.
Absolutely. You know, you got to know, even if the destination changes over time, you know, it's good to have a point on the map that you're going towards, right? Otherwise, you're just kind of maybe stumbling through the dark a little bit.
But what other
let me ask you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, what other job would provide me 10 days off at a time to be able to do this and pay me well enough so that I'm not struggling to go? It's phenomenal. It's like I call it winning the job lottery. I really do. Like in November. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say in November, my paid vacation, I get a month off. I'm going to Australia for a month. I mean, how cool is that? And I'm getting paid to go there.
Wow. That is awesome. Well, let me ask you this about that job, right? So some people have this kind of dichotomy between their day job and their dream job or their dream career, their hell yes life, whatever. But it sounds like you've got both going on and they're both a hell yes for you, right? So this is kind of your day job, but it sounds like a hell yes. And then you've got this other stuff that you're doing with Kathy's Cruises and you know, all the other projects that you're doing now and the speaking and so forth. Would you say that really isn't an issue for you? Are you going to continue to work at this job for as long as you need to, or do you have it in mind that you're wanting to move out of that eventually? I don't know.
Well, we're allowed to take early retirement after 10 years of service, and I only have 6 years left. And and you get a good retirement package. They have wonderful benefits. So that is the goal. However, if the book takes off and there's going to be another book and another book, who knows, right? Because ultimately, I'm a person, given my nursing career and seeing how time is so precious and 1 minute you're there, the next minute you're not. Ultimately, my goal is to make a difference, and I am not making a difference by hauling dirt from point A to point B. I'm just not. Right. So if the odds end up that I need to be out in the public more and doing what I'm doing, well, I'm going to be taking that. Definitely that route. But I mean, who knows, right? Who knows? We'll see how the book goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like letting your hell yes life unfold to a certain extent, right? You can't force things, but you can, you know, you're working your day job. You're going to see how it evolves with the book and everything else and move towards it slowly but surely. You know, some people can quit their job overnight and, you know, jump off that cliff and you know, the net will catch them and so forth. That hasn't been the case for me. I also still have a day job, but that I'm grateful for as I move towards my hell yes life. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing. So to round things out, Kathy, can you give us one tip, quote, or resource that has helped you along the way on your journey that you'd like to share with our listeners?
My favorite quote, and this so applies to me, is when sleeping women wake, mountains move. It's a Chinese proverb. And I'm like, I woke up. Thank God.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
Yeah. When sleeping women wake, mountains move. Look out.
Mountains
Here
move.
I come.
Well, and you're like literally moving mountains with the truck that you're driving. Yeah. That is awesome. Yes, awaken. It's great. Okay, now tell us on where on the internet we can find you, and tell us everything about your book. You said you're in pre-launch right now. Yeah.
Okay. You can go to www.kathytuccaro.com. So it's TUCCARO.com. And on the main page, there's a free gift. And what that is just the introduction to the book, which my Toothless Joe story is in there. And for those, like the pre-sales are available now until the actual book comes out on Amazon and Chapters and all over. But until then, you can only buy it on my website, and it's only $25. But a good portion of the book, the proceeds, is going to implement personal development programs in schools and in the women's shelters in the northern communities. And I'm starting in Fort Chipewyan, Alberta, which is right by the Northwest Territory border. So yeah, whenever whoever buys a book, it's going to be going to help these kids change, help these kids learn about themselves, teach them so they don't fall into the whole drug thing and whatnot. So the book itself is, it's not a big book. It's 140 pages, but I have an artist. She's from Russia. She's wicked. She drew me 6 pictures for different chapters. So before you even read, say, chapter with a broken wing, bird with a broken wing, you're looking at the picture and you're so involved in what she drew that you're mesmerized. So it's quite, it makes you want to pull into the chapter. I also have some pictures in the middle of various points in my life. So when you do buy the book, you get chapter 1 as well. You're going to get an 8-minute video that I have on there, which is basically just kind of like a timeline, and you'll see what's in the book. The book is a lot more. It talks about spirituality. It also because if I didn't have my faith, I wouldn't be here alive. I honestly, I would not be alive. So, talks about faith. It talks about also dreams, because they have guided me a lot in a sense. But most importantly, what the book talks about, yes, it's about my life, but it talks about the emotions related to it. So say chapter 1 it talks about fear. That was my first emotion as a small child. That's all I knew. So I talk about fear, and I talk a little bit about, a few things that happened, but then I also give suggestions and solutions on how to deal with fear, what to do, how to cope. And every chapter has got 4 or 5 questions at the end, just for some personal self-reflection, just to take time for 2 minutes out of your day and just say, well, what am I afraid of? Or what, if I were to take that word out of my vocabulary, what could I accomplish if I wasn't? So it's just kind of like a little sneaky way of getting people to put away their tablets, put away all the distractions that we have in this day and age, and just look at themselves and what can I do to change? How can I help myself? So yeah, it's going to be a really good book. I love it. I am very proud of it. And I know it will make a difference in a lot of people's lives. I know for sure.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on writing that book, something I aspire to do someday myself. So maybe I'll keep in touch with you. And I look forward to the launch of it and reading it myself. Hell Yes Lifers will post all the show notes. We'll post all the links in the show notes for this episode. So be sure to head there and to connect with Kathy. So Kathy, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to hear your story and think about driving that big truck. And to close out our time together, I'd like to say hell yes together on the count of 3. Are you ready to do that?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Hell yes!
All right. Kathy, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Hell Yes Life podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite RSS feed. If you like the show, please leave a rating and review. And if you want to stay connected, visit hellyeslife.com and sign up for the e-newsletter and private Facebook group. Again, I'm Norman Bell. Thanks for joining me. Now let's get out there and live a hell yes life.